Hey guys, and welcome to episode 16 of our weekly Super Smash Bros. Ultimate News Roundup, which means there's only 10 weeks left until the game is out. As usual, we're joined by Ash and John to go over all the updates from the Smash Bros. Blog and elsewhere from the past week. So let's get right into it, but before we actually get into it, I gotta say, it's kinda crazy that we're almost in the single digits for the game to come out. We're almost 9 weeks away. And it's coming quick, guys. It really is.
I can't believe we're already into the single digits, basically. Basically from here, we're counting down from 10, which is, when did that happen?
Time for the countdown.
Basically 2 months left, which is just insane. It feels like the game was just announced, you know?
Right? Yeah, this short development cycle, at least for, I guess, short news cycle, has been very odd. But it's also kind of nice because, well, it's not that long until we're going to get to play it, so bring it on. But
yeah.
In the meantime, we'll go over our blog updates, and it starts off with day 1 being Sunday, where we got the assist trophy for the moon from Majora's Mask. It says, from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, this assist trophy will appear in the sky and slowly approach the center of the stage. When it hits, it deals a lot of damage to opponents nearby. And I love the way this thing looks. It is so freaking badass and terrifying. Just this massive face coming towards it. And it looks like it has a huge damage area based on what we've seen. But I gotta say, my favorite image from this week is just Ganondorf staring down the moon coming straight at him like, bring it. That is such an awesome screenshot.
Yeah. I love how when the moon comes, the entire background just sort of goes really dark. And quite a few assist trophies do this. I think the Color TV one makes the entire background go grey. So it's really cool that these assist trophies now have dynamic changes to the stages. And I was looking at what moon this was, whether it was the Majora's Mask one or the Majora's Mask 3D one. And it's the 3D one. So his nose is a bit longer, he looks a little bit angrier, his mouth is bigger. So that's kind of interesting they went with the more recent design. But I know some people prefer the original over this one.
I didn't look that closely, but maybe that's... hey, there's our canon reason for why the Majora's Mask, or the moon... I always want to say Majora's Mask, or Majora's Moon, but the Moon Assist Trophy can appear in the Great Bay. So we got 2 of them.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they have like slight different designs, perhaps. I didn't actually look at that, so maybe that's the case.
And that's what I think everyone's waiting to see is the Moon Assist Trophy on the Great Bay stage, because everybody wants to see 2 Majora's Mask moons in the same stage. And of course, this was such an obvious assist trophy. This is totally just making fans happy. Of course, the moon from Majora's Mask is a fan favorite in general, and I think it makes sense to have this as an assist trophy. I love how unbelievably menacing the moon looks, as it's supposed to be. And yeah, I mean, you guys have already hit on most of what I would have already said. It's cool that the moon is here. It's iconic for Majora's Mask, and I think it makes a fantastic assist trophy. And as you said, Derek, it seems like it's very difficult to avoid because the area of effect is so wide. So I'm not exactly sure how you go about avoiding it unless there's just no way to on small stages. But it does seem like one of those assist trophies that would be better on small stages than larger ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that we've gotten this assist trophy, but no sign of Skull Kid yet. People are still holding out hope for the Skull Kid character. Don't know if that'll actually happen or not, but it is interesting, and it's still great that we're getting Majora's Mask representation.
Yeah, it's kind of weird too, because Majora's Mask is like 18 years old, and we have a Majora's Mask assist trophy, but I don't think we have a Breath of the Wild one yet. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I guess that's
true, actually. And you'd think like any one of the Guardians would have been, or the champions, sorry, any one of the champions would have been a perfect assist trophy.
Yeah.
And a Guardian too. I mean, that would just
a Guardian, actually.
A Guardian
Good point.
Be a little over OP, but sure, why not?
Yeah, actually, a Guardian would work. I'm surprised they haven't done either that or one of the champions.
Yeah, you think, oh man, that'd be really cool to actually have a champion come out and, like, Daruk seems the most simple, but Urbosa would be the one I would choose.
Oh, yeah. Urbosa, just with her, like striking across the screen with lightning and just, yeah, she would be awesome.
I hope we get that now. That makes...
Yeah, that makes way too much sense.
Yeah, it's like, why haven't we got these guys as assist trophies? Or one of them at least, but...
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, let's go ahead and move on to day 2 being Monday, where we got a character overview for Lucina. And the blog says, Lucina is Marth's Echo Fighter, so she shares most of her standard and special attacks with Marth. However, while Marth's attacks are more powerful when made with the tip of his blade, Lucina's attacks are just as powerful whether you use the tip or the base of the sword. It's cool that Lucina's in here. I think she makes perfect sense as an Echo Fighter because she was one of the most obvious clones from Smash Wii U. And it makes perfect sense. Like, she was definitely like, hey, we have extra development time. Let's pop her in there. It'll be really quick and easy. Fans will like it. This completely works for an Echo Fighter.
Yeah, and I have to say, we're looking at a comparison screenshot of her Wii U model versus her Switch model, and her face looks so much more lifelike. Like, that's the main thing I'm taking away. The rest of her model looks fairly similar, except maybe her scarf looks a little more detailed, but other than that, it's just mainly her face looks so much more lifelike, like in her eyes.
I absolutely agree. The Wii U one looks kind of like a doll, whereas Switch, you see actual expressions in there, especially her eyes. Like, you can actually see the color of them now, whereas on Wii U, it was just sort of this black void. So yeah, it looks way more lifelike, and I can't wait to see how they've animated this. Because obviously animation's one of the big parts of Ultimate. I guess Lucina's always quite a stern-faced character as it is, but I think they can get quite a lot out of her with their animations in this one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you too, because her face looks so much less plasticine this time. As you said, doll face would be the easiest way to put it. There's a lot more ruffles to her clothes now, so you can get a sense of the movement, and it's just minor details. It's not like a huge upgrade, other than probably her hair. I'd say her hair looks a lot better, but it's that mostly standard upgrade that you would expect out of a switch to Wii U to switch. That's an interesting sentence to say, but yeah. Did either of you two use Lucina much?
I actually did a lot. So
really?
I've never really clicked with Marth before, because when I played Melee, I didn't really play Fire Emblem, and I tend to just play characters who I enjoy their series, and I didn't really play Fire Emblem until around, probably, it didn't really click with me until Awakening, and I went back and played the others. So Lucina was kind of my first real foray into Fire Emblem, so I had a stronger connection to the character. So I used her quite a bit in Smash 3DS, not Smash Wii U for some reason, but she was my main for a while. And then when Wii U came around, I don't know, I just kind of dropped her for some reason, but I did play as her for quite a while. And yeah, she's very similar to Marth. But I prefer her as a character. I find Marth is something of he's maybe just a bit too much of a Mary Sue, whereas I like Lucina a lot more. It's just something about the design just clicks with me a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I use most of the roster, so I definitely have used Lucina quite a bit. She's not one of my best, but I do prefer using her over Marth, even though Marth is technically the better character because of his tipper. I don't know, I find Lucina a more interesting character to play as, so I kind of feel like playing as Lucina is like playing with Marth with a slight power handicap, because, yeah, you don't have to be as good at spacing, but her ceiling is lower as well. So, I don't use her. I probably do use her more than Marth, but I just enjoy the character in general. I didn't play a ton of Fire Emblem Awakening, but I think I just kind of got into the character because she's just so super popular in general. Like, I think some of her sheer popularity just rubbed off on me, and I'm like, oh yeah, Lucina, I'm into this. Like, cool. But I'm not like a huge Fire Emblem Awakening fan. I will say it's probably worth noting that just like Marth, her shield breaker can now be manually angled, so that's a slight buff she's gotten, as well as her dancing blade being significantly faster, just like all the other Fire Emblem characters who have it. So, just a couple of minor buffs to mention.
Yeah. I used her a little bit, but I've kind of got accustomed to Marth, so I've mainly stuck to Marth whenever I got to those characters. Honestly, I stayed away from the older Fire Emblem characters. I really enjoyed the playstyle of Robin, so that's sort of who I gravitated toward when it came to the Fire Emblem characters. Lucina is a good beginner character. She's a character you play to get ready for Marth, essentially. And once you get the spacing down, then you're just ready for Marth, pure and simple.
Right.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to day 3, being Tuesday, where we got new music from Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, being Battle Steven. So, Ash, do you want to go over the details on this one?
Sure. So this rearrangement of the Steven Champion battle theme from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire comes to us from Soshi Abe, who is based on my research, a relatively new sound creator at Nintendo, whose gamography so far only includes Breath of the Wild, so he has not contributed any rearrangements to Smash in the past, and really in general, he seems to be a new enough player in the Nintendo video game music scene that there isn't really a whole lot of information available about them, but he's worked on Breath of the Wild, and this comes to us from Soshi Abe, and I gotta say, you guys, I am a huge fan of this rearrangement. Mm-hmm. I've always really liked the Generation 3 battle themes, period. I think Gen 3 has always had some of the best, but this is so good. I'm really loving it.
Yeah, it really is quite incredible. And I was kind of thinking, why are they doing a Gen 3 one now? But then I remembered, obviously, there were remakes on 3DS not long ago. Mega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So that kind of makes sense for why they're here now. Yeah, I kind of want to hear some more Sun and Moon music before really getting more Gen 3 stuff. But sure. I echo you, Ash. It's just a great remix. I mean, he may not have a huge gameography for what he's done in the past, but Breath of the Wild is still a pretty huge pillar for having on your resume.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
And yeah, I agree with you guys. The Steven Champion battle always had great music, and to get it pumped up even further with this rearrangement is fantastic. Like, it is just... It's that perfect kind of Pokemon music that you become used to, and there's a lot of great champion battle themes. I think my favorite is still, I'm blanking on her name, but the dragon trainer girl from Black and White 2 became the champion. I always thought she...
Oh, Iris.
Iris, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, she's always my favorite. Yeah, she was great.
I want a rearrangement of that, but it might be a little bit too old for that, but I agree with John. I hope there is a few more Sun and Moon themes rearranged, because there's some really great music in that soundtrack. And to see what they do with it would be really cool. So, hopefully, but what we're getting right now from Soshi is really good.
No, it's good stuff, although I will agree with you, John. I do want to see some more Sun and Moon stuff. We do so far have that one remix of the trainer battle theme from Sun and Moon, which is sounding really good, but there's so much more fantastic music you can mine from Gen 7, so I really hope we get some more stuff from that generation before we see more remixes from prior generations as well.
But that wasn't the only update for Tuesday, as we also got a stage overview for Brinstar. And the blog says, this stage is an underground cavern on planet Zebes, where the Metroid series takes place. Although the rising and falling acid at the bottom of the stage can deal severe damage, touching it when you're falling off the stage can actually help you recover. And I mean, I'm actually really happy the stage is here. I've always kind of enjoyed it. I love that aspect of, oh no, I'm falling. Oh, thank you, Acid, for launching me back up and keeping me back in the stage. It's that last little desperation is like, oh, I barely made it back. That makes Zebes just a lot of fun, or Brinstar a lot of fun.
I will say, this is probably one of the stages that didn't really strike me as being that different with its changes. I mean, obviously when you go in and compare, like side by side, there are quite big changes, but just looking at it, it looks just like I remember it did, which I guess is a good thing. But yeah, it's still the same old Brinstar. It's slightly darker, which I kind of like, because it's always been quite a colourful stage in the past. So I like they've gone for a little bit more of a gritty look for this one.
And actually, it really is striking just how different every version of this stage looks from Brawl's, because we're looking at like different comparisons between 3DS and Ultimate and Melee and Brawl, and Brawl's version of this stage looks so much more yellow, like both in the background and just kind of in general. There's a lot more yellow and brown going on as opposed to the other versions of the stage, which are darker, especially this version in Ultimate. And I gotta say, it's looking good. I will admit, I'm sorry in advance, I've never been the biggest fan of this stage, so the fact that it's returning here, I'm not against it. I'm happy for the millions of people who clearly love Brinstar. I'm just not one of them. It's fine, but it's not something that I would pick that often. Although I do agree with you, Derek. It's great being saved by the acid when you're getting KO'd, or otherwise would be KO'd.
It's a very similar stage to the N64 Zebes, and even down to the lava gimmick. So I guess it kind of makes sense that it's not returning, or at least it's not confirmed to be returning yet. Even the shape of the stage is really similar. So it kind of represents that as well, but I still want to have Zebes in Smash Ultimate. I mean, it just feels right to have all the N64 stages. So yeah, it kind of sucks that's one of the ones that's been cut.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because the gimmick of, cutting the edges of the stage and making them flip over or change the way the stage is laid out is cool in concept, but never really clicked with me. It always came across more annoying than anything else. And I don't know. I do prefer the N64 one to this, but I still had my fun. It was still close enough that I was able to enjoy the acid gimmick.
One thing I will say about Brinstar, though, is it doesn't really remind me of Brinstar. I mean, obviously the music and the lava do, but I think they could have done a bit more to maybe actually give you the vibe of Brinstar, because I'm not really feeling it.
Yeah, I never really have. It's kind of Brinstar Depths feels like Brinstar Depths, but the regular Brinstar stage doesn't really evoke the original Brinstar to me that much. I agree with you, John. I don't know. Like, it's cool to see this stage back just because it's an old school stage and it's a mainstay for Smash, but it's not something that I'm like, oh man, yes, Brinstar's back. But, you know, I'm happy for all the fans who wanted to see it come back.
Well, let's move over to day 4, being Wednesday, where we got an item overview for Death's Scythe. So according to the blog, you can KO highly damaged opponents with a well-placed smash attack from this scythe. A black aura will surround your opponent right before you attack, signaling an instant KO. And I would have never thought of this item. Like, of all the items that you could get from Castlevania, never would have thought, yeah, you know, let's just take the Scythe from Death and we can maybe get an instant KO with them if their percentage is high enough. That is such a cool idea, and it is surreal to see characters like Sonic, like Kirby, like Jigglypuff holding this Death Scythe and being like, alright, let's reap some souls.
Yeah, the capture potential is so good here. Like, when this game comes out, my Twitter feed is just going to be full of Pichu holding this scythe.
Well, even the screenshot shows Ness, and that's funny enough, because he's just a kid. He's just this, little kid running around holding a giant scythe, and they can deal one-hit KOs. Same thing with a character like Isabelle. Like, it's going to be hilarious to see certain characters running around with this giant scythe, just delivering one-hit KOs. But in that sense, it reminds me a lot of the home run bat, just with a different result. Instead of having, your characters fly off the screen, it's just an instant KO. But this is something that you're going to want to watch out for if you're playing with items. You're going to want to stay far away from whoever has this because, yeah, this thing's going to rack up the KOs, I have a feeling.
Yeah, I can see that being like, well, this guy's got it, I got to get over here or do some long-range attacks. It is good to note, though, that you do need to do a smash attack, which is a little easier to dodge. But still, there's some definite potency and some chaos that could be created out of this Death Scythe. We just need to keep it far away from Luigi.
Yeah,
that's true. I do wonder, it says it only works against highly damaged opponents, so I wonder what the cutoff is. Is it like 100? I feel like I heard it was 100%, but I don't know if that's confirmed or not. But I don't think you get anything, I don't think anything happens if you try to smash someone with with this Death Scythe and they're below 100%. I think they have to be above a certain threshold.
I'd imagine they'd at least take some damage if you get them.
That's what I would have thought.
Yeah.
Though that's true. I should say nothing happens in the sense they don't get KO, but I'm sure they take some damage.
Oh, because the way you were talking, I thought you meant like
my bad.
Do no damage to them whatsoever until they hit that threshold.
Just bounces off them.
Wouldn't that be interesting, though, if it was like Cloud's finishing touch, where if it's above a certain threshold, it's an instant KO almost, but if it's not, it does like 1% damage. That would be pretty interesting, actually.
So one thing I like about the Death Scythe is because it's so large, it's very easy to see. So because it's an instant KO item, you're always going to be wary of it. So if someone has it, obviously you either stay away from them or just try and be really defensive. It just feels like a really well-balanced item. It's something that just... It's menacing, and you've got to try and stay away from it at all times. So I love they made it like this huge, massive item that sort of towers over all the characters.
Yeah. And it is interesting because it like you said, Derek, you kind of touched on this, it's not the Castlevania item I would have expected, but at the same time, I guess they had to get a little creative because Simon and Richter have the items we would have expected, like the holy water and, the cross and the knives and things like that. So I feel like they had to get creative since Simon and Richter have the usual pickups from Castlevania. Yeah,
and hey, if you're going to go for an iconic item, Death Scythe is definitely the place to go because he sends out... It'd actually be really cool if you can actually send out the little ones that he throws out as well.
That would be awesome.
Like doing a little swipe will send out a little one that doesn't do a lot of damage, but it certainly will annoy you.
Yeah.
But another thing beyond the blog happened on Wednesday, which was a new Sakurai Column. And Ash, you usually cover those, so what would this column tell us from Sakurai?
So I summarized this column as well. I'm just going to go through the main points here. So the main points from this week's column was that the pace of newcomer reveals is going to be slowed down from here on out. Sakurai feels as though they may have gone a little overboard up to this point, so not to expect them to just keep unleashing newcomer trailers super, often all the way up to launch, like to maybe reset our expectations there a bit. Also, Isabelle is obviously based on Villager, but she is not an Echo Fighter, and this is because their personalities and their proportions are totally different. And as it turns out, Villager and Isabelle don't share a single animation in common, so they may look similar in a general sense, but at least according to Sakurai, they don't have any of the same animations, so that kind of surprised me to find that out. And then finally, Isabelle is based on her Animal Crossing New Leaf proportions, where all the human characters, including Isabelle, human-looking characters, including Isabelle, were given slightly more realistic proportions, like slightly taller ones. So she has different proportions from Villager in the sense that Villager is based on older Animal Crossing games, such that he's kind of short and stout, whereas Isabelle is based on her New Leaf proportions, which mean, of course, she was also introduced in that game, but she's a little taller, a little thinner, so she's not exactly the same proportions as Villager, as Sakurai touched on earlier in the column. So basically the reason that they didn't go with a thinner Villager was because Sakurai thought that if they did that, he would be thinner than Mario, which wouldn't fit his character. So Sakurai going into the super, super crazy details, as we're used to him doing. But yeah, those are the main points from the column. This column was mainly based on Isabelle and Sakurai's thoughts about her.
So the slowdown on characters is very interesting, because I kind of expected them to do at least one character a month, and I guess that's still possible. I mean, we're 2 months away from the game, so 2 more characters does sound pretty likely. However, I do expect maybe 1 or 2 more than that, so maybe 3 or 4 in total. But yeah, I don't really know how they're going to slow down, because the jump between K. Rool and Simon and Richter really wasn't that big. I mean, I guess Isabelle was quite quick after that. But we are. It's not like we're getting characters every week. It's still quite a slow pace, and they can't really get that much slower until the game releases.
Yeah, this tells me maybe not to expect a lot of brand new characters, but we'll still probably get a couple of echoes, because this was a Smash Time question, but we didn't actually pick it. But I think it still applies here, is that we did have that post that discussion about the blog theory that posits that we could see upwards of 8 more characters based on the rate that they've been showing new characters each week as part of the blog. And if they're right, then I think we're mainly going to see echoes from this point. Like, we maybe get 1 or 2 brand new characters, but it'll mostly be echoes.
I could see that.
I mean, we haven't really seen that many echoes in total, and they're an entirely new column of fighters. So you'd imagine they'd have to have quite a few more to just to justify that entire category.
It's true. I mean, I do kind of get the sense that what Sakurai means is not to expect a bunch of brand new newcomer trailers, but that we still might get some Echo Fighters dropped with their kind of mini trailer type things that they do, like for Chrom and Dark Samus. So I agree with you, though. Like, with you both, I don't see how much more they could really slow down the pace of reveals at this point, because we're not, as you said, John, it's not like we're getting them every week. So I kind of do think this only pertains to brand new newcomers and not Echo Fighters.
Isabelle's proportions are interesting too, because I've noticed proportions aren't exactly realistic in Smash Ultimate. Like, young Link is very near the size of, like, Breath of the Wild Link. So it's interesting that they're scaling Isabelle differently to Villager. Like, even when Pichu, he's like half the size of most of the characters in this game. So yeah, it's kind of interesting they're just deciding to get like proper into detail with Isabelle for some reason.
One of my favorite things is to look at Mega Man next to any human character in this game, because his hands and his feet are giant next to regularly proportioned human characters, and he honestly looks kind of freakish next to a regularly proportioned person in Smash, like Lucina or Marth. He's like kind of almost as tall as them, but his proportions are so much bigger. It's really weird.
I mean, it's one of those things, the size of these characters varies so wildly, depending on their games, that you just sort of have to be like, what feels right? And they might be wildly off, as in the case of Pichu, but, it's a smaller character, it's lighter, close enough, that works.
Right, like, isn't Olimar like 2 centimeters tall, or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, and Kirby's supposedly really tiny as well, so...
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's one of those things I never would have thought to go into. And I guess I never realized or picked up that the Villager was based off the old school Villagers rather than the newer ones from New Leaf. Of course, I don't play the games that often, so...
I hadn't picked up on that until I was, summarizing the column and came to that part. I'm like, oh, I guess that is kind of true. Villager does seem to be a little more short and stout compared to what Isabelle looks like in Smash. Oh, actually, something else interesting. I didn't put this in one of the main points, but another reason that Villager's proportions are the way they are in Smash is because of how the Animal Crossing games are played from a bird's eye view, making the characters seem shorter than they actually are. So that's another reason Sakurai decided to go with Villager's shorter, stouter proportions here in Smash.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, too.
His thought process is always so fascinating.
It really is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, well let's go ahead and move on to the final day this week, day 5 being Thursday, where we got a character overview for Lucario. The blog says, Lucario is the only fighter whose attack power increases as it takes damage. A fighter that truly shines when in a pinch, choose Lucario for a thrilling battle. And yeah, I played Lucario a little bit, but his fighting style never really clicked with me. Like, I've never been able to really make him work for me. He's fun enough, but he's one of those, like, yeah, I'll try Lucario this time, but not really think much about it.
When he came out in Brawl, he was kind of a replacement for Mewtwo in some ways, or at least his Shadow Ball was. And yeah, like you, I never really clicked with him. I played him quite a few times, and I think he was buffed in Smash 4 over Brawl. But still, he was never really one of my favourite characters. But I do like that there's some Gen 4 representation in here, because otherwise it's just a bunch of Gen 1 Pokemon, really, in the roster. So it's great to have Lucario here again. But yeah, like you, I never really played as him that much.
I have an interesting history with Lucario, because I don't play him very much either. Or play it very much either. I'm not very good with Lucario. But one of my best friends with whom I play Smash the most often is a Lucario main in Smash 4. So I have had to learn the ins and outs of Lucario, because he is quite good with Lucario, and so we've had a lot of good Lucario versus Mega Man 1v1s, and you can imagine that just over the course of playing against Lucario over and over again, I've become a little wise to some of its tricks. And I will say, you guys, there is very little that you want to face down less than a fully aura charged Lucario ever. any aura with any Lucario with 150% damage or more is the most terrifying thing to have to face down, especially when you're already down a stock. That's even worse. It's like, okay, say you get KO'd, and I'm like, I have 1 stock left, and then my buddy has 2 stocks, but he's at 150%. He's in a really good position, because Lucario gets stronger as he gets damaged, capping out at 150%. And yeah, man, Lucario can be downright scary if you are playing somebody who knows how to use it.
Yeah, I think that's the key point, is that if you know how to use him, he can be really devastating. I've just never really figured him out for my playstyle. He has a great sense of power to him, but he's, I don't know, just not quite my style. Now, granted, Mewtwo has never been my style either. Like, I was so excited to play Mewtwo when I first unlocked him in Melee, and I played him, I was like, oh god, he's so slow and floaty. I can't do this, it's not for me. So it was great to have Lucario being a little faster than that, and he has an interesting gimmick with the whole fact that his power increases as he takes damage. Otherwise, he has seen a little bit more detail to his fur, but he's not super different compared to Wii U.
Yeah, his texturing kind of reminds me of his Pokken design, where he's a bit more realistic. Like, you can see his skin has sort of like a rough shimmer to it, and his fur is actually quite furry.
Yeah.
So yeah, he reminds me of his more realistic Pokken representation.
Yeah, that's what I would say. That's a good way to put it. And beyond that, though, like the improved texturing on its fur, there isn't really a whole lot to talk about in terms of differences in the Lucario character model, at least from what we're seeing here.
The other thing to note is that we still have not seen his final smash, because in Wii U, he transformed into his Mega Lucario form.
Right.
I wonder if they'll revert it. I'm trying to remember what his final smash was in Brawl.
So in Brawl, yeah, I think it was at Hyper Beam, and then he gets up and you sort of control a beam that shifts left and right.
Right, kind of like a combination with Ness.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll go back to that with him like taking on his Mega form and then unleashing that, and to just allow it to be quicker.
I could see it doing like a combination thing where maybe he turns into Mega Lucario and he like flies up to the center of the screen and then just does one laser sweep across the screen, and that's it. Like a cinematic laser sweep, like with Hyper Beam, and then you get back into the action.
We have seen some characters have a bit of input, like Bowser with Giga Bowser. You can decide exactly where you punch, so I guess maybe you can still decide where you aim the laser. But you probably won't be able to shift it around like you did in the past.
Very unlikely.
That's a good point, though, about some Final Smashes still having some input, so perhaps you still can control it. But I do think they're going to revert back to its Brawl Final Smash, because it makes so much more sense for the kind of game Ultimate is, and for the kind of Final Smashes Ultimate is pushing for.
Alright, well that takes care of the blog for this week, but we're not quite done yet. As always, you guys can support us on Patreon for just $1 a month, get access to our podcast 3 days early, get access to our Discord and its VIP server, as well as offer up a question for our Smash Time questions. And this week we chose Thomas Hinton, who says, "Hey guys, as everyone knows, the Smash 64 As everyone knows, the Smash 64 cast was picked based on Nintendo's biggest franchises, or most important at the time. Well, my question is, if the game was to be released in this day and age for the first time, who do you think would make the cut? Do you think it would stay the same, or will it change? Roster would be limited to 12 characters. Keep up the great work. And I found this to be an incredibly fascinating question, because I do think it would be changed. It would definitely not be the same 12 characters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Should we start off by cutting the roster? So...
Yeah.
I don't think Jigglypuff would have a chance.
No.
He's not one of the biggest Pokemon. And he only really made it in because it was kind of easier to mix it in with Kirby. So yeah, I don't think Jigglypuff would be in this game if it was made in this day and age.
No.
I agree.
I don't think Ness would be in the game in this day and age.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say Ness as well. I was kind of going back and forth between Ness and Captain Falcon, because if we're assuming that Smash has the history it has, I think Captain Falcon would be grandfathered in to another initial 12. But if we're approaching this from the angle that this is the first ever Smash Brothers game, there's no history before this, and based on what's popular now, Captain Falcon's out as well.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
and Captain
agrees.
Falcon's the most popular because of Smash.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Right. And that's kind of the same with Ness as well. Like, if it weren't for Smash, very few people would know what Earthbound is, unfortunately.
I know I certainly wouldn't. Maybe at this point I would, just from like learning more about the history, but certainly not now. The other 9, I don't... What do you think? The only other one I think has the loosest chance is maybe Fox, but I
still think Fox would still be in, because Starlink, you got the whole Starlink thing going on, Star Fox Zero. I still think Fox has enough brand power to still be in the initial 12.
Yeah, it's true. I suppose with every Smash game, there's one character who's kind of the surprise, like the guy who you don't expect to be there. So maybe Fox would just be that guy who was... Because if we're thinking without Smash, what would Star Fox be today? Because there hasn't really been a major game in a long time. At least not one that's made an impact. So without Smash, would Fox even be in Starlink? Because really, the last huge game is still Star Fox 64.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say, because I feel like Nintendo still likes to consider, or at least act like they consider Star Fox one of their main tentpole franchises, even if they don't necessarily act like that. In terms of like what they do doesn't necessarily bear out what they say about that. But I kind of feel like Fox would still be in the initial 12. I don't know, even though obviously the Star Fox overall series popularity has gone way down since Smash 64's days. I kind of still think Fox would be in there.
I think Fox would be the surprise character, I think. Like that. Whoa, who's this guy?
Yeah, man, I haven't seen him in forever. Holy crap.
Yeah.
It's like, really? After Zero, he gets in? All right. That's such a weird place to come at this from, to like imagine these characters as of now without having the influence of Smash all the time before it. And I think that's what makes it such a fascinating question. So, Mario and Luigi definitely in, DK definitely in, Link, Samus definitely, Kirby and Pikachu absolutely. Fox maybe is our special character. Yoshi, I'd say Yoshi's strong enough.
Yoshi's in.
Yoshi's Island, between
Yoshi's
Yoshi's Island and Yoshi's Woolly World and the upcoming Yoshi's Crafted World, I think he has just enough to get in there.
Well, if we only have 12 characters, would Yoshi make it in ahead of Peach and Bowser?
See, that's the thing I'm going to argue.
Hard.
I think... I don't know. I have a hard time deciding who would make it in over the other, but I think Bowser would get in here.
Yeah, I think Bowser's got to be in.
Yeah.
He's, this it'd be quite a boring roster if there's no villains. I know the original Smash didn't have villains, but if they're trying to make an appealing fighter today, I think there's got to be some evil person in there.
And Bowser makes the most sense.
But then there's also Ganondorf, which, because you already have Mario and Luigi as 2 Mario reps, and you only have 1 Zelda rep. So I wonder if Ganondorf might make it before Bowser, only because there were already 2 Mario reps.
But if Captain Falcon's not in, who's
what's he based on? What's he doing?
Based on Luigi.
Good point. That's true. That's a really good point. I hate to even suggest this, but I wonder if Luigi might not, like, at this point, because Nintendo just likes to just crap all over Luigi.
But we are getting a Luigi's Mansion 3, so I think Luigi...
That's true.
I think Luigi has that legacy. I think Luigi would stay in.
I think Luigi would make it as more of his own character and less based on Mario, but more of his own Luigi's Mansion type character.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Inkling has more of a chance than Luigi.
Ooh.
Oh, Inkling would be in, no doubt.
Yeah, Inkling would be
Right.
in. A Fire Emblem character would be in. Honestly, I'd say it'd probably at this time of where Fire Emblem is at now, it would likely be Chrom or Lucina, not Marth.
Sure.
Yeah, agreed.
At the same time, though, I also think that an Animal Crossing character would make it, because Animal Crossing's huge for Nintendo right now, and I'm thinking either Villager or Isabelle would need to be part of that initial 12.
I mean, Nintendo's biggest franchises at the moment are probably Mario, Zelda, Splatoon, Pokemon. That's probably the big four at the moment.
Right.
And Kirby's up there, because
yeah.
Kirby's done very well for them lately.
Right, Kirby's up
True.
there.
Yeah, and Donkey Kong, I guess, too. But yeah, I think Inkling has more of a chance than the vast majority, because Splatoon really is one of Nintendo's biggest franchises at the moment. It's bigger than Star Fox, it's bigger than F-Zero, it's bigger than Metroid. So yeah, that's no doubt.
So is Bowser in or not? Do we think Bowser would
Yeah,
make
I think
it in?
Bowser's in.
I think Bowser would make it in
Yeah.
over Ganondorf.
I
I
think
agree.
so.
So we got okay. Well, I think that's our three to replace Captain Falcon, Ness, and Jigglypuff. Bowser, Inkling, and either Chrom or Lucina. Do you think it would be Chrom or Lucina? I think it might be Lucina just to get more female representation in there.
Yeah, we've got
Yeah.
no ladies apart from Samus in here, so we've got to have Lucina.
My only problem with this, and I completely agree with the vast majority of this, but I still think there's a chance an Animal Crossing character would need to be in that initial 12.
Oh man. So
That's my only
be
thing.
cut.
who would Animal Crossing take? Who would Villager take over? Because man.
The only one I can see is Bowser, but I think Bowser would be in too.
So does that mean I think the other three that have the loosest chance at this, other than like if we're looking at Fox as sort of like the long shot to make it in,
Sure.
is Samus a long shot to make it in? Yeah, she's had some great games, but she's coming back now with Metroid Prime 4, and we just got the great Samus Returns. But for a while there, she was a little shaky after Other M.
Yeah, but she's also like the first lady of gaming, and she's also the only female in this roster,
True.
other than Inkling Girl, assuming it would be Inkling Girl, and let's say
Lucina.
Isabelle is part of it.
Yeah.
Or Lucina, right. So I feel like Samus is safe.
Okay.
I think Fox is the one that would be a little, we're not sure, you know? And maybe Yoshi, but I think Yoshi's safe. So I guess Fox. Fox would be the one that Villager or
I
Isabelle
suppose so.
would
So
replace.
who's our surprise character now? Just
Probably Villager. In fact, it took something like
Yeah.
Villager. It's like, really, Villager?
Yeah,
All right.
that would be probably the one, yeah.
all right. I guess that's our 12.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident about it. That's a good roster. 12 is such a limited amount, though.
It
And
is.
It's hard to get surprises in there. Yeah.
It's so hard to be like, oh yeah, this character. And it's so weird to look at a character like Captain Falcon and Ness and be like, yeah, they'd get cut.
Yeah.
I know, it's really strange. I mean, even Fox, it's like, yeah, Fox might get cut. I'm like, that's weird, it's Fox.
There's a legacy there, and it's so weird to start from the beginning. Jigglypuff is no like that's the easiest one. Like, there's
Oh,
no
yeah.
way Jigglypuff would be in this otherwise.
But I do reckon they'd have another Pokemon rep, and if there were, then I think I'd still rather cut Fox in this roster and add another Pokemon rep than have him in, because there's so many
so
Pokemon
sad.
they can throw in there. And Pikachu obviously is the face of Pokemon, but
Right.
they're going to want to try and advertise the most recent generation. So that has more of a chance than Fox does, I reckon too.
Maybe.
Poor Fox.
Yeah. I mean, he's
Poor Fox.
right on that cusp. But I'm pretty confident, like, keep it at one Pokemon rep, be Pikachu, because we gotta get how many? Only Mario is the one that has so much representation between Mario, Luigi,
Yeah.
and Bowser. And then Inkling and Lucina. And Villager. Man, Villager's a tough one, because I agree with you, Ash.
It is. Yeah.
So I guess Villager instead of Fox. It'd either be Villager or Fox.
Yeah. Because, I mean, there's no doubt that Animal Crossing is a way bigger deal for Nintendo now than Star Fox is. Like, it's not even close. So, yeah, I don't know. But then again, it's not Villager or Isabelle who's appearing in Starlink, it's Fox. So, you know.
Be a little weird to have Villager or
Can you imagine?
I want it now,
Is it
though.
not?
No, I know, I want it. I want Isabelle piloting her own ship
there you go, perfect.
in Starlink. Yeah.
Oh goodness, but yeah, I'm curious. Comments. I do want to see who your lineup would be. I think this is a very
Yeah.
interesting question to see who you think would get cut based on today's gaming, not your current feelings. Because I'm fine with this roster as a legacy, but if you're starting Smash from scratch, what would your roster be? That is a great question. Thank you so much for that one, Thomas Hinton. And yeah, if you guys want to get a shot at asking us a question for these Smash Time segments on our discussions, just be sure to support us on Patreon for just $1 a month. You can ask the questions there, along with questions for our podcast, and get that same podcast 3 days early every Friday, as well as access to our Discord in the VIP room there. But alright, I think that covers it for our Smash Blog discussion for this week. Only 9 weeks left to go after this, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, and make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more Orange Smash Brothers and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.